So, if you don't know me, my name's Lottie. I'm an actor, and over the course of my actor life auditioning professionally over the past 5 years, I have had to learn new accents that I've never heard before in my life and couldn't pinpoint what they'd be in like 3 or 4 days for auditions. I have done entire shows in other accents, so sometimes people who know me ask me for accent advice. So, I thought I'd compile everything I've ever been told or everything I've ever learned into one video. So subscribe, stay tuned, and let's get into it. So first I thought I'd share some resources and then we can get into common mistakes, ways I actually use them, and more behind the process of it. So I thought I'd share some of the resources that have been recommended to me, some of the resources I've actually used, and all of the different options that are out there. So one of the main resources that people often turn to when they're trying to learn an accent is accent tutorial videos. And there was one playlist that I can link to below that goes through some common accents and just some of the key sounds and features of those accents, and it was recommended in a class that I went to, and it's useful as a starting point to have some of those key sounds to really turn you into the accent. But not all of the accents in the entire world and geography of the UK even will be in that video. So I think something else that's useful that I've found with the more niche accents is looking up and finding like celebrities who speak those accents and really listening to a lot of it, because I think sometimes a mistake that lots of people can make is like just doing an accent based off of memory. But memory is such an interesting thing because in our minds we fill in the gaps and we're doing then like a Scottish accent how we remember or would visualize a Scottish accent to be, which could be entirely different from the reality of a Scottish accent. Like, you can see that some words you'd be like, I would never think that someone would pronounce that word like that, but that is authentic from this specific accent. So being able to listen to what an accent actually sounds like is useful. And I also worked with someone who was studying the voice as part of like a master's course. It was a master's in voice, and it was so interesting because she really used Wikipedia breakdowns of accents, because lots of accents have Wikipedia pages, so you can look at them and you can see a lot of the common features and influences of accents, because we think of accents sometimes as being one static thing, like this is what an accent from this region sounds like. But like, if you look at the London accent, it's recently changed. Like, there's multicultural London English because people don't sound like they did in the 50s, and like there's three different London accents now that are quite common, and that wasn't necessarily the breakdown of who had what accent in like decades gone by, but accents are always changing. Like, we don't speak in the same accent as they did when they were speaking Shakespeare. Shakespeare had an entirely different accent. And also, something that I find really interesting is that the Australian accent is actually influenced a lot by the Cockney accent, because the Cockney accent is sort of like an ancestor of the Australian accent, because so many prisoners from like that kind of area of London and that area of the country were sent over to Australia. So the Australian accent has a basis in that, because lots of different people moved to Australia to live there, and the accents of where the people originated from and like moved from have influences on what the accent sounds like today. So that's so interesting to me, and you are really able to learn in depth about the accent through doing that more in-depth research rather than just an accent video. And there's a dialect archive which I was recommended to look at, because when I was trying to learn a more niche accent for an audition, I was like trying to find my own resources, and I was informed that actually there's a dialect database that has loads and loads and loads and loads of recordings, so you can search on there, and I'll link to all of these resources below. And it's really useful to be able to have samples to be able to listen to. And also something that can be useful and something that actually happens a lot on my National Youth Theatre chat, or used to, because we were hundreds of actors from all across the UK, is that you can find people who speak that accent and get them to record the lines or get them to check your accent. Like, accents are from people, so being able to use that and use people as a resource to refine your accent can be really valuable. So then how do I actually use these resources and form them into a process to learn these accents? So something that I like to do is first start out by watching any sort of accent videos there are. Like, I find that useful to be able to just understand the key sounds. Although actually something that is helpful is that once you've done accents for a long amount of time, sometimes there are accents and you're like, I've done this before. Like, I always end up singing in an American accent, and you learn about the placement of an American accent. Like, an American accent is a lot more raised and like higher up, and there's a lot of space in the mouth and a lot of sound for like a lot of space for the sound to reverberate in, which makes it a lot better singing wise, because there's a lot of space to like reverberate the sound. It will sound less like closed and restricted. So I think if I haven't done the accent that much before, like being able to watch a video and then also being able to listen to the words that would be in my actual script and writing phonetically how I'd say them in my accent. Like, I think sometimes the word not, for example, in an American accent would sound more like NAH, like not. It sounds a bit more like that to me than not how I'd say it. So I think being able to write it out gives me something that I'm like, it doesn't sound like the words in my accent, but it sounds like this. So it gives me something to really lean towards and use. And something else, if you're struggling to get your like mouth around the words, something that I was told is to like have a pencil like this way across your mouth, because then like if you speak with a pencil in your mouth, like it sounds quite unhinged, but like if you try it, then that means that you have to really over exaggerate the accent, so that then when you take the pencil out of your mouth, everything feels a lot more relaxed in your voice, and like because you've really overemphasized it, then it feels a lot easier to reach the accent. So just being able to phonetically write it out is something that I like to be able to do and really understand what does the accent actually sound like, and also where's the accent placed in the mouth. And I think a lot of different resources like the Wikipedia page can help with that, in understanding like, is the sound forward, and like is there not that much movement with the mouth when people are speaking. Like, I think what I find interesting is that if you imitate the mouth shapes and the movement of speech when you're watching someone speak on TV on mute, you often can clock on to where they're from, because of the way that their mouth is shaped is indicative of like what kind of sounds they're making. So I think getting that sort of placement, like German accent can often be sounding very much from the throat, and that's where that reverberates from a bit more. So understanding where it's placed and writing it out and understanding where you're aiming for in the script is something that I find helpful. And then alongside having an accent process, there's the question of what accents do you actually need. I've always been told that general American is a useful accent to have. I don't know if there is like a general American, like every state sounds different, but there is an accent which is general American, which is what a lot of musicals are in, a lot of different TV shows are in, that's really useful to have. And also people who I know, like if they have a parent from a specific place, that's useful sometimes if they've got heritage from a place, to be able to do the accent of their heritage. And there's also some ethical questions sometimes about like what accents can you really do. Like, I think a lot of regional accents, they like to have authentic regional actors to play those roles, because it's authentic regional stories and they want people to be able to represent that area and also connect with the stories themselves. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think having an accent process can be really useful, and it's useful if you're multi-rolling. Like sometimes you will be playing different characters, and having different accents to differentiate them is useful. And what mistakes can you like prevent from happening? Something that I've found useful is like sometimes the accent names that we're looking to do are really general. It's like, do a Scottish accent. And okay, like Glasgow will sound very different to like the Highlands. So I think something that I've seen be done that's really useful is that if people have like a go-to Scottish accent, like I love to do a Scottish accent, I don't know why, I just sort of live in a Scottish accent from time to time. Having someone be able to listen to the accent and be like, it sounds like you're from this area is important. Like if you have a Scottish accent you're doing, which Scottish accent? Like being able to pinpoint exactly what you're trying to sound like, so it's not just like these are Scottish sounds, but like it's dotting out all over the place. Like pinpointing where is really useful. And then the final point is, how do we act in this accent? Something that I think is useful that I also implement in singing often is like you work a lot on the technique of stuff, but that will take you outside of the story of it. Whereas sometimes if you commit to the story, like people are more drawn into that and they're less focused on the technical aspect of it. So sometimes if you only have a few days to learn like a specific accent, then do the work, do the prep, do the research, but then let it go and immerse yourself in the story, because sometimes if they really want you to do a specific accent or a specific person's voice even, they might bring someone in who will work with you on that. So that is something to keep in mind. Like you will have a rehearsal process, you will have time if you get the role to be able to sometimes prepare the accent. So you're giving them a snapshot of a character and an initial impression of the accent. So that's something to not worry too much about. Like I think sometimes you can then go in like inwards a bit and like be a bit more reserved, and that will affect the acting, whereas really don't think about the accent. Like no one's ever really thinking about their accent that much. So do the prep, do the work, and then just let go and surrender to whatever it will be. And that is how I would recommend approaching acting in the accent, and that's the general advice I've been given. So let me know if you have any tips, resources, things you want to share in the comments. Let's help each other out, and please do subscribe because that would really help me out. Please subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.